Every year, when the monsoon hits Kuala Lumpur, something remarkable happens underground. While other major Asian cities are scrambling to pump floodwater out of their streets, KL's secret weapon quietly swallows millions of liters of water and spits it out clean. Most people walk right over it every single day without knowing it exists. And when you find out exactly how it works and why it actually outperforms one of the most celebrated flood systems in the world, you're going to look at this city completely differently. Here's what nobody is telling you. Tokyo's flood tunnel is famous. It appears in documentaries, travel videos, engineering breakdowns. Engineers fly from around the world to see it. But KL built something that in several critical ways does more, costs less to operate, and solves a problem Tokyo's system literally cannot solve. And we barely talk about it. Before we go further, I want to ask you something. If you're watching this right now, help me prove a point. My friend from JB told me that content about Malaysian engineering would never get traction because, and I quote, Malaysians don't care about their own country's achievements. I think he's completely wrong. If you believe Malaysian stories deserve to be told and celebrated, drop a like right now and subscribe. Let's show him together that we do care about what we've built. Assalamu alaikum, and welcome back. So let's set the scene properly, because context matters here. Kuala Lumpur sits in a natural bowl. The Klang River and the Gombak River meet right in the city center, near Masjid Jamek, which you've probably passed 100 times on the LRT. When the monsoon comes, those rivers swell fast. Historically, flash floods would hit central KL within 30 to 45 minutes of heavy rainfall. Entire streets underwater, businesses destroyed, traffic paralyzed for hours. This happened multiple times every single year. The 1971 flood was catastrophic. Then 1988. Then again in the late 1990s. After the 1998 floods caused an estimated RM1 billion in damages, the government made a decision. Something had to be built. Something permanent, something bold, and something that had never quite been done anywhere else in the world in this exact form. That something is SMART, the stormwater management and road tunnel. And here's the first thing that makes it genuinely unique. It's not just a flood tunnel. It's also a working road. A 9.7-kilometer tunnel that carries both motor vehicles and floodwater, sometimes simultaneously, sometimes separately, depending on how bad the rainfall is. No other tunnel system in the world does this at this scale. Not Tokyo's, not London's, not Chicago's, KL's. Now let me explain how it actually works, because this is where it gets genuinely fascinating. The SMART tunnel has 3 operational modes. Think of it like a building with different settings depending on the weather. Mode 1 is normal operations. There's no serious rain. The road tunnel is open. Cars use it as a bypass from Kampung Pandan all the way to Jalan Tun Razak, cutting through the city without the usual surface traffic nightmare. If you've driven through it, you know it's one of those small daily miracles of KL life. Mode 2 kicks in when rainfall is moderate. The lower deck of the tunnel, the stormwater channel, begins diverting floodwater from the Klang and Ampang rivers through a bypass channel into a holding lake called Taman Desa Lake, which can hold around 3 million cubic meters of water. The road section on the upper deck stays open. Vehicles and floodwater are moving through the same structure, separated by engineered concrete. Simultaneously. That's not something you see every day. Mode 3 is when things get serious. When rainfall exceeds a certain threshold, the entire tunnel switches to full stormwater mode. The road deck closes, traffic is redirected, and the full 9.7-kilometer bore becomes a massive drain capable of discharging up to 85 cubic meters of water per second. It takes about 3 hours to activate Mode 3 properly, and another 2 to 3 days to clean and dry the tunnel before vehicles can return. But here's the thing. It works. Every single time. Now let's talk about Tokyo, because this is where the comparison gets really interesting and maybe a little controversial. Tokyo's metropolitan area outer underground discharge channel, which locals call the G-Cans project, is genuinely breathtaking. 5 massive shafts, each about 32 meters in diameter. A pressure-equalizing water tank the size of a cathedral. It cost approximately 300 billion Japanese yen to build, which at the time of completion in 2006 was roughly equivalent to around Rm 11 billion. It discharges up to 200 cubic meters per second. Bigger numbers, yes. But here's what the comparison videos never tell you. Tokyo's system does one thing. It moves water. That's it. It's a dedicated flood tunnel. You cannot drive through it. It generates no revenue from daily use. Its operational costs, including the electricity to run its massive pumping systems, run into hundreds of millions of yen every year. The pumps require constant power. During a major flood event, those pumps are consuming roughly 14,000 liters of diesel per hour. The SmartTunnel, by contrast, is partially self-financing. Toll revenue from daily vehicle use helps offset the operational and maintenance costs. The tunnel handles approximately 100,000 vehicles per day under normal conditions. That's not just clever engineering. That's clever economics. And in a country like Malaysia, where infrastructure budgets are always under pressure, building something that pays for part of itself is not a small thing. It's a massive thing. The SmartTunnel cost approximately R1.8 billion to construct. That's a fraction of what Tokyo spent. And it performs flood protection at a level that has effectively eliminated major flash flooding in central KL. Before SMART, the Klang Valley experienced an average of 8 to 12 significant flood events per year affecting the city center. After SMART became fully operational in 2007, that number dropped dramatically. In the first 5 years of operation, flood damage in the protected zone fell by an estimated 90%. Property values in previously flood-prone areas like Masjid India and Chow Kit stabilized and rose. Sound familiar? This is what good infrastructure actually does. It doesn't just solve the immediate problem. It unlocks economic value around it. But wait until you hear what happened next, because this is where the story gets even more layered. When major rainfall events hit KL now, something happens that feels almost anticlimactic to people who remember the old days. Traffic gets rerouted on the surface. The SmartTunnel switches modes. The water goes underground. And within hours, it's largely over. Compare that to 1998, where the central business district was flooded for days, where businesses were counting RM millions in losses, where cars were submerged on Jalan Tun Perak. Here's a micro-story that puts this in perspective. There's a row of shops near Masjid India that an older trader told me used to build sandbag barriers every time the sky darkened. The shopkeeper would watch the clouds rolling in over the city and start mentally calculating how much stock he needed to move to higher shelves. His father did the same thing. His grandfather did the same thing. After 2007, he stopped. He hasn't needed a sandbag in over 15 years. That's not a statistic. That's a life change. Now let's address the obvious counter-argument because it's fair. Tokyo's system protects a much larger population density. Greater Tokyo has over 35 million people. The KL metropolitan area is around 8 million. Tokyo's flooding problem, if it were to go unsolved, would be catastrophic at a scale that KL's simply cannot match. The G-Cans project isn't overbuilt. It's built for what Tokyo needs. But the comparison isn't really about scale. It's about ingenuity relative to constraint. Malaysia built a world-class flood management system, integrated it with daily transportation infrastructure, made it economically sustainable, and did it at a cost that developing nations can actually look at and say, that's a model worth following. Indonesia is looking at it. Bangladesh has studied it. Several African cities with similar flooding profiles have sent engineering delegations to KL specifically to understand the smart tunnel concept. Tokyo's system is a marvel, but it's a marvel that only very wealthy cities can replicate. KL's system is a marvel that the world can actually learn from and adapt. Remember what I said earlier about KL sitting in a natural bowl? That constraint, the geography that made KL so flood-prone, is also what made the smart tunnel's design so clever. The engineers used the natural gradient of the terrain to let gravity do a significant portion of the water movement work. The pumping requirements for SMART are substantially lower than for Tokyo's system, which sits in flatter terrain and must actively pump massive volumes of water upward. KL's geography, once a curse, was turned into an engineering advantage. And this is where it gets really interesting, because the smart tunnel is already influencing the next generation of KL's flood management. The ongoing Klang River Rehabilitation and Beautification Project is designed to complement SMART by improving the natural capacity of the river channels above ground. Engineers are looking at a hybrid approach, combining the underground infrastructure with greener surface interventions, planted riverbanks, permeable surfaces in new developments, and early warning systems that give residents more preparation time before Mode 3 even activates. The city that used to flood catastrophically is now being studied as a model for climate-resilient urban design. That's not something that gets written up in Malaysian textbooks yet. But it should be. So here's where we land. The smart tunnel is not famous the way Tokyo's G-cans are famous. You don't see it in drone footage. There are no dramatic cathedral-sized chambers you can tour on weekends. It does its job quietly, underground, largely invisible to the people it protects. But quiet isn't the same as less impressive. A system that is self-financing, that integrates transportation and flood protection into a single structure, that costs less to build, requires less energy to operate, and has eliminated 90% of flood damage in its protected zone is not a consolation prize to Tokyo's system. In several genuinely important ways, it is the smarter solution. We built something remarkable. Right under our feet. Right under the city. And the next time you're stuck in traffic on Jalan Tun Razak and you see the smart tunnel entrance, remember that underneath you, an engineering solution that the whole world is quietly studying is keeping your city dry, keeping your city moving and doing both at the same time. That's worth knowing. That's worth being proud of. And if this video helped you see your own city a little differently, subscribe, share it with someone who doesn't know this story yet, and drop a comment telling me what other Malaysian engineering stories you think deserve this kind of spotlight. There are more. Many more. And we're going to tell all of them.